Welcome back, Algebra Half. Lesson 53 is all about percent. Short lesson, important lesson if we don't feel so sure about what on earth a percent really means, right? What's the sign? First of all, we're showing our sign the right way, not like this is our first step, right? You go from right to left, top right down to the bottom left. Sometimes I connect it because I'm going fast. That's fine, as long as you make it facing the right way. Now, the language spoken by ancient Romans who sort of gave us this was Latin. And in Latin, per is really by. And cent stands for centum, like century, 100. We put these words together in English to form this word percent. From this we see that percent means by 100. The symbol is this. 1% of a number is 1/100th of a number. To demonstrate, you can see this really cool illustration on page 171. Where they have the number 256 and a big box to illustrate what that is. And then they get another box that's the exact same size, and they split it up into 100 boxes. And in every little box, it's worth 2.56. And if you added up the sum of all the boxes, it would come out to a full 256, displaying the fact that by multiplying by 100, you really just move that decimal over 2 spots because of the 2 zeros, right? We've been doing a lot of things like that. Thus, 2.56 is 1/100 or percent of this whole 256. Illustrates why that's true. So if it says 160% of, which we know means times, 256 is, which we know as equals sign, (160% of 256) would be, well, we don't know yet. What if we want to find out? We change 160% to 160 per 100. Per or by is what we can say as we set that fraction bar. By 100 times 256 is what? It's going to be bigger than 156 because it's 160%, not just the full 100%. So 256 was 100%. Now we're kind of adding on an extra 60%. That's more than 60%. But now we're finding out what is this all together worth. So you multiply the top and you put it over 100. And I'd have to check that on a calculator, but we'd move the decimal over 2 spots to the left, and it would tell us. So kind of like decimal of a number was d times a equals b, percent of a number is p over 100 times a equals b. Now for your practice problems, they have pretty simple numbers here. For example, what is 1% of 7,500? What is 1% of 7,500? What, oops, that's a question mark, is 1% of 7,500? We put 7,500 over 100. And what's our shortcut for those? Cross out your zeros. And now I have 75. 75 is 1%, which follows the illustration we just had. How about 34% of 7,500? I just changed what is 34% of 100. Now I multiply this times 34, which is 2,550. because it's really 255,000, and then divided by 100. Cross out your zeros, and I have 2,550 left. Or I could have just taken what is 1% and multiply it by 34. That's sort of like what we did in 7-6 math. To solve these, we find out what is 1% worth, and then we find, well, then times that by how many more times we need to do this. But if you're ready to start doing percent of a number is a number, that's what I would recommend. Take 2 practice problems, please.